Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, episode 311, Am I Grieving the Right Way?
Welcome to the Widowed Mom Podcast, the only podcast that offers a proven process to help you work through your grief, to grow, evolve, and create a future you can truly look forward to. Here's your host, Master Certified Life Coach, Grief Expert, Widow, and Mom, Krista St-Germain.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the podcast. If you have ever wondered if you're grieving the right way, or found yourself silently worried that you're doing it wrong, that something about your experience means you're not grieving correctly, or worse, that you're broken, this episode is for you. Today, I want to unpack where that question even comes from, why it's so common, and what I want you to focus on instead. Because, spoiler alert, if you're asking that question, you're probably doing a lot better than you think. And that's what this episode is all about. First, a little update from my world. The mulch update. I stopped at 150. I got a refund on those remaining 30 bags. Also, I didn't get them on sale, and I really wanted that sale price, so I just decided to stop at 150. I've been doing so much work on the house and on the yard. My dad and I painted the deck and my screened in porch this weekend. It was a lot of work, but it looks so much better. Also, I got the pool open last week. The pool heater decided to break, so that was super fun, an unexpected expense there to replace the pool heater. But my youngest is having a graduation party this weekend, graduating from high school. And so there will be lots of teenagers at my house, and I really wanted to have it done. I also never had the experience of vacuuming out the pool cover, so that was fun. I got a new shop vac, and I filled it up 4 times. So I've been doing a lot of work outside. I always like to give you an update on my life anyway, but it's been so interesting. I remember after Hugo died, and also I remember after I got a divorce from my first husband, I remember this energy of needing to prove to myself that I could do it, right? That I could go it alone. And this time it's felt less about proving and more like reminding, just kind of coming back to, oh yeah, I can be single. Oh yeah, like I actually can handle this. And I don't have to do it all myself. I can ask for help. I can hire things done. I can do a lot myself, and I'm enjoying doing a lot myself. And also, I don't have to. And so it's been an interesting experience. Also starting to plant flowers because that season is here too. So that's a little bit about what's going on in my world. Let's jump into, am I grieving the right way? So many of my clients ask me some version of this. Is this normal? That is always the underlying question in what they're asking me, right? Should I still be crying this much? It's been X number of months. Shouldn't I be doing better? Am I regressing? And the fear under a lot of these questions is maybe I'm grieving wrong. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. This fear comes from a few places. First, social conditioning. We're taught that grief is supposed to look like something specific. Quiet crying, wearing black, eventually some kind of magical moving on moment. That is not real grief. That is made up grief. That is what we wish grief were. That is not real. Then there's also this pressure of timelines that we've internalized. And so you've probably heard things like time heals all wounds. The first year is the worst. And then when the calendar hits month 13 and you don't feel like kittens and rainbows, you wonder what's wrong with you, which is wild, isn't it? There's also this comparison trap that a lot of us experience where we look around and we see other widows and we think, well, she looks like she's doing okay. What's wrong with me? Or people are telling us, you're so strong. You're doing so great. And what you feel like on the inside is not that you're so strong. You feel like you're just checking the boxes, but you don't feel great. And so it's a very strange thing, both to be told that you're doing differently than you feel, and also to see others who you believe are doing differently than you. And if you have had trauma before the loss, which most of us have had to some degree, maybe it's from childhood, maybe you had a difficult relationship, you might already be doubting your ability to process hard things. Or you might find that you have more coming up for you to process than just the most recent loss, right? Sometimes the old stuff comes up, the stuff that we haven't dealt with, or stuff we didn't have the tools to deal with, or the time wasn't given to deal with it. And so then our doubt just gets louder. So I want to say this very clearly. Grief doesn't follow rules. It follows love. And love is messy, unique, and deeply personal. So the idea that there's a right way to grieve, sets us up to feel like we're failing. There is no finish line to grief. There is no quiz. There are no grades. And I know I've said this a million times, that feelings aren't problems to be solved. Grief is not a problem to be solved. It's an experience to be allowed. And it's important enough that I'm going to say it again. Grief is not a problem to be solved. It is an experience to be allowed. Grief is the natural human response to a perceived loss. It is supposed to be part of loss. It is supposed to be part of our lives. Remember me talking about the dual process model of grief. It's a framework that I love. And it tells us that ideally in grief, we want to be moving back and forth between focusing on the loss and focusing on restoration. So we're going to think about the loss and feel it, right? And then we're going to do something else that is restorative in nature. And healing is back and forth, back and forth. It's not always and only dealing with the loss. It's not always and only distracting from the loss. It's doing both and letting ourselves go back and forth. So some days it's going to feel like we are in the thick of sadness and there are intense memories and tears and all the things. And then some days we're going to be running errands and laughing a little bit more and maybe eventually going on a date. Sometimes we feel those oscillations hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute. All of this is normal. None of it means you're doing anything wrong. And here comes something really important. Again, grief isn't linear. As much as we would like it to move in neat, tidy stages, it doesn't. We don't use the 5 stages of grief around here. There is no such experience that anyone I have ever talked to who has found their grief represented in just those 5 stages. Even Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did not like in her later years how people used her work and turned it into something formulaic. Okay? So we're not trying to go from denial to anger to bargaining to depression to acceptance. We don't do that. It's not how it goes. And if your experience doesn't match that, it's not because you're wrong. It's because that is a grief theory that was developed in 1969. And it was anecdotal and it never really represented the totality of most people's experience. So that's not you being wrong, okay? When people ask if they're grieving the right way, often what they want to know is, am I on the right track? Am I healing? And the truth is, the right track doesn't always look like what we expect it to look like. So here are some things that I think are good signs that we are headed in the direction that we want to head. You're willing to feel, even when it's hard. You're learning to name what's happening inside of you. You have language for your emotional experience. You're having moments, even if they're just small ones, where you're starting to imagine something good again. You're starting to imagine the potential of what could be in your future. You're practicing new tools. Maybe self-compassion is new to you. Maybe tapping or other nervous system regulation tools are new. Maybe just pausing and noticing how you feel instead of judging yourself for how you feel. Those new tools might be new to you, but you're practicing them, you're learning them. And you're starting to say yes to life. Even if you don't feel completely ready, you're saying yes to life more and more. And sometimes people think that they're doing grief right when there's no more pain, and that is not it. That is not it. What we're going for is an experience where pain or the avoidance of pain don't own you anymore. Where your capacity to allow the pain to flow through grows. It's when your life grows bigger around the grief, but the grief, because there is no finish line and because we can't go back in time and undo the loss, will always be there. It's when we notice the pain, and instead of telling ourselves that it shouldn't be there, or we're wrong, or we can't handle it, or it's too much, or we don't know how, we tell ourselves that it's a part of life that we can allow, right? We learn how to feel safe so that the pain can flow through. We learn to support ourselves as the pain, which is supposed to be there because that's what grief often is, flows through. Those are worthy ways of measuring whether we're headed in the right direction. Those are worthy ways of measuring progress, in my opinion. If you are still doubting yourself, I want to offer you this. Many of us, we were never taught emotional literacy. We didn't grow up with tools to process feelings. We learned to push through, to please others, to stay busy, to distract, to avoid, to not talk about it, to act like we were okay, even when we didn't feel okay. So, when grief drops us into a chaotic sea of overwhelming emotions, of course we wonder if we're going to drown. Of course we're looking for a life raft, right? So if you feel stuck, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It's often proof that you are surviving, right? You're getting by, and you've hit a grief plateau. What got you to surviving is now not getting you to thriving, right? You've had coping skills, you've used them, and you have found that they have limits. They stop helping like you'd like. But you don't have the new tools yet. You don't have the new ways of getting to the growth that you would like to create for yourself. This is why coaching can be so powerful. This is why I do what I do. It's not about fixing you. You're not broken, right? Grieving humans are not broken humans. It's about learning things that nobody taught you. It's about learning, how do I feel without falling apart? How do I feel safe so that I can feel? How do I support my nervous system? How do I increase that window of tolerance? How do I rebuild a life that fits this new version of me? How do I deal with the identity shift that has happened? How do I make use of that powerful brain of mine and make sure that I'm thinking in ways that move me toward what I want instead of away from it? So, if we are letting go of the idea of grieving the right way, what should we focus on? A couple of questions that you can ask yourself. 1, what do I need today? Emotionally, physically, spiritually, what do I need today? Am I willing to let this be my grief, not anyone else's, not the idea of what I thought grief should be, but am I willing to let this be my grief? Can I be curious instead of critical about how I feel or the intensity of how I feel? Can I be curious instead of critical? And most importantly, what if you stopped asking if you were doing it right and you started asking how you could be kind to yourself? Because so much of grief is harder than it needs to be because we have a mean voice in our heads. And I want to tell you, you don't have to listen to that voice. That is not the truth of who you are. So what if you stopped asking yourself if you were doing it right and you started asking how you could be kind to yourself? That's what I have for you this week. Remember, I love you. You've got this. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and want to create a future you can truly get excited about even after the loss of your spouse, I invite you to join my Mom Goes On coaching program. It's small group coaching just for widowed moms like you, where I'll help you figure out what's holding you back and give you the tools and support you need so you can move forward with confidence. Please don't settle for a new normal that's less than what you deserve. Go to coachingwithkrista.com and click Work With Me for details and next steps. I can't wait to meet you.